Welcome to another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is Mollie Busino, speaking on processing the unimaginable, pregnancy and infant loss. Mollie Busino is the founder and director of Mindful Power LLC, a group psychotherapy practice located in Hoboken, New Jersey. She specializes in CBT with a focus on fertility reproductive mental health, including pregnancy, fertility, and postpartum challenges. Mollie is an executive board member for Postpartum Support International and an active member of the American Society for Reproductive Health. In addition to her work in the female reproductive realm, she provides coaching and therapeutic support for entrepreneurs, OCD, and anxiety. For more information, check out her website at mindfulpower.net. Hi, Mollie. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you on today.
Hi, thank you. I'm really excited for being here.
Yeah, so thank you for taking the time to come on and talk about a topic that is quite painful and hard for a lot of women to talk about, which is pregnancy and infant loss. And I'm just very interested in learning more about how we can support women going through this, because it is quite common. And your background as a psychotherapist, you've been having a lot of experience supporting women through the grief of this process.
Great. Yes, I'm excited to be here, as I said.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of how you got started with becoming an expert in this area.
Mm-hmm. Well, it somewhat naturally evolved about 3 years into having the practice in Hoboken. Since we do have so many young families starting off, especially we've seen that shift in the demographics in the last, I would say, at least 10 years. I had an individual reach out to me, knew that I had a practice, and asked for support. She did a lot of postpartum advocacy and asked for support or mental health resources for women that she was working with or coming into contact with. So that led to my female reproductive mental health specialty. And within that is intertwined obviously pregnancy loss and infant loss. I work a lot with women going through fertility treatments or fertility challenges, postpartum challenges, and sometimes just also pregnancy challenges. And it is so very common for women to experience pregnancy loss. So that is a topic that has come up more and more within my work with women.
Right. I was reading somewhere, it's like 1 in 4 families will experience some sort of pregnancy and or infant loss. I think that's quite, it's 25%, right? And yeah. I think sadly, especially when it's like a first trimester miscarriage, a lot of women tend to hide it. Then there's all this like cultural, like we don't tell anyone you're pregnant until your second trimester, 12 weeks. So we've kind of been conditioned to like keep it a secret in case this early miscarriage happens. But then I'm wondering, if that does happen and no one knows you were even pregnant, then how do you talk about it after the fact?
Exactly. The first trimester loss, there's so many complications or added layers of grief with pregnancy loss and infant loss in general, right? And each trimester also adds their own unique layer to it. Within the first trimester, as you were sharing, right, there is often a lot of isolation because, maybe your employer never knew you were pregnant, right? Maybe your best friend never knew. Maybe your, family didn't. And so you're in, you're grieving and you cannot share, or you have to have the concern of others, identifying that you are, or sometimes a lot of women don't want anyone also, to share that experience at that time as they're going through the grief process. So it definitely complicates it, depending on the trimester too. For the first trimester, also there's the added, level of uncertainty of what led to this miscarriage. You can still have that for a second and third trimester, right? But you have that more frequently with a first trimester. And think about when we grieve other losses in our life, right? If it's an adult, we usually, not always, but usually know the events that led to that loss.
Right.
Either somebody's been chronically ill or
Right.
someone, right? Like there was an accident of some sort. But with a miscarriage or pregnancy loss in general, we often never know. And even with testing, I mean, I can't tell you how often I'll hear in my office, right, that the tests come back and they're labeled as inconclusive.
Oh, wow. That is heartbreaking. You kind of want like answers.
Exactly. Because then it adds a whole other layer of, with grief in general, right? We feel a loss of control in our minds, right? It's something that we're really trying to understand, loss and death, but we never have a complete understanding. And with pregnancy loss, we also have this added layer that you really do not understand what led to it, right? A lot of women will turn to self-blame.
Yes, I was going to saying this is my fault.
Yes. Even if they know it's irrational, right? Like I've had plenty of women say, like, I know you're going to say that extra cup of coffee didn't matter, but are you sure? Like, are you sure it didn't, right? And it's their mind, like our minds, right? They want to understand and be able to predict. So when something like this happens, it's so hard for our minds to wrap, right? To truly process and understand. So then there's that other layer of trying to go through also processing that something just so unexpected and unexplained can happen. And that there really is no control.
Right. And that's kind of the challenge with pregnancy in general, and even being able to get pregnant, right? There's so many things that we just still don't even know about how this all works. That there's such a magic to it. But I think what I think in general, doctors agree that, especially like, miscarriage, it's typically, this is a baby that probably wasn't going to be in good health, and there was some, genetic issues, and that might be what contributed to that loss.
Yes. However, so if we're talking about, those going through fertility treatment, then often the question will be if they went through genetic testing, well, I thought that prevented it, right?
Right.
So yes, so it is for a very large percentage. And we know no matter what, it wasn't a healthy pregnancy.
Right.
Right. We know that. Like we know it wasn't a healthy pregnancy, but there still is those questions. And it's just, it's again, difficult to comprehend. It takes like your mind has to, process and understand, like we just might not have all those answers.
Right. So when women are saying to you, I know this isn't really my fault, but I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling inadequate as a woman to be able to like sustain a healthy pregnancy, how do you respond to that?
So similar to what I was saying earlier is I'll often explain, and all my clients would probably laugh if they hear this. They're like, yes, she says this all the time. I always say our minds are like machines, right? And explain that is your mind. If you think of it as a machine, it's just trying to comprehend and process that information. But we know the evidence says that is not the case. It's not that you're inadequate. It's not your fault. It's not the extra cup of coffee. It's not, right? Like that
Right.
You forgot the prenatal vitamin the one day.
Right.
Because then we would see it going across, right? Like there's not evidence across all of our population, right?
Right.
We see some pregnancies where, individuals might even be utilizing substances and throughout their whole pregnancy, and babies are come full term,
right.
And we have some individuals that are super, super healthy in many ways, and they experience a miscarriage.
Right. So I want to also talk a little bit about, when a woman is experiencing a loss during her pregnancy or even after giving birth, how that impacts the partnership, the couples that, typically are going to be both grieving this loss, but differently.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The biggest piece there is the differently, right? It's so hard because we often look to our partners, right, we don't even say to rely on, but we look to our partners to be a major support system when we go through challenging areas in life. But when there is the grief with pregnancy loss and infant loss, our partners are also going through that.
Right.
So they're not able to support us in the same way that they may be able to at, with other challenges in life. And that can become very difficult for both ends, right? Like it's hard for anyone, right? When you're going through a tough time, it's hard for us to understand how someone else could go through it differently, right? Because you're in it. You have those emotions and they're at such a higher level that then there can be conflict within couples, or there could also be guilt and shame, right? You said earlier, feeling inadequate. That is such a common feeling many women will express. And, many of them have brought up that, they would feel as though their partners might almost blame them, even though that's not what's happening, right? Again, they might see that as irrational, but they feel as though like, should feel shame because I was holding this pregnancy. I was supposed to. It's my fault, which will then cause them to maybe even close up or distance from their partners. So it's so important. And I'll often say when an individual comes into my office soon after a loss, okay, tell me where your significant other is in this. Are they talking about it? Where are you with them? How are you guys also still maintaining a connection, but recognizing that you both probably need your own space to grieve because you're going to be grieving differently.
Right. Do couples ever come in together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Depending on the couple, right? And depending on also sometimes some women need that space to just be theirs,
Sure.
right? So we might wait for that, but absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in general, men and women process emotions differently, right? So I could see why, the grief would be no different. And I'm guessing that men might have a harder time with like a first trimester loss where there's nothing visible. I don't know if that makes a difference compared to their wife being, largely pregnant or after the baby's born.
The attachment to the pregnancy, you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, that can happen. And it is like wiring, it's gender different wiring, right? Plays into the grief, but I've also seen it in same-sex couples too. It's also the piece of, and this is a whole other layer of pregnancy and infant loss, but I think there's that physical connection that no matter, right, same sex or not, your partner is not going to know what that felt like completely, right? And
right.
Then also, right, and not know that as you're going through that grieving process, you're also physically healing often.
Right. So there's both going on for the woman who was actually pregnant.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And that part, I mean, it's wonderful to then have the partner be within the office so that I can explain that. Because a lot of, not even just the partner, but many individuals around the woman may not recognize that there is such there's a physical healing while there is that emotional healing too.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's not like, okay, I'm not pregnant anymore, and just bounce back to your activities, your regular activities.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like a constant reminder too, depending on where you are in that physical healing process.
Right. Yeah. And the farther along the pregnancy, I'm assuming more healing that's going to be required to kind of address for that. Now, what about, we've been focusing a lot on like pregnancy loss, but what about like a stillborn or a baby who dies soon after birth? I mean, can we talk about that?
Yeah. I'll be 100% honest, right? That is one of the most challenging times as a therapist for me. Because the deep level of pain one experiences, you just see it, like I could see it. And recently, I'm sure you saw, right, there's been so much media around it when Chrissy Teigen, she was pretty vocal about their recent loss. And I had clients who have gone through late term or infant losses reach out to me and say, like, did you see this? Did you see the pain? that's what I was feeling. And right away, I'll be honest, that's what I saw, right, is that pain. It is such a deep level of pain that many individuals around them will be concerned for them, but may not understand all those stages and levels of that pain. Because as you were saying, right, like as you go through the pregnancy, yes, there's that physical healing. So not only is it that deep level of grief, right, but sometimes I'm also sitting across from an individual and we're talking about milk supply and, right, all of that on top of them just trying to figure out how to get out of bed today, you know, and also the trauma, because there is also the trauma of, you know, many women went through that birth. So the trauma associated with going through that birth and many times knowing, you know, prior to going through the birth experience that they were not going to have a live baby. And the layers of trauma associated with that, and for their partners too, being there and being helpless as they're, you know, navigating that. So I always say, you know, you have to take it like, where are we today? I never say, how are you feeling? Where are we today? What do we need today? Because there's so many, like, let's physically heal, grieve, also figure out there's then that grieving for everything you just prepared for, right? There's often a nursery.
Oh, right.
Right. There's often, sometimes there's a daycare set up already, right? There's other strangers. It's also talking about, you know, you'll have strangers, you might go to the same coffee shop every day. It might not be somebody close to you, right? But they've seen you, that you've been pregnant, and you come in and you're not pregnant. And it's navigating that, just the world that has seen you go through this pregnancy, and then having to, you know, like also navigate that grief with pretty much strangers.
Right. I mean, and, you know, second, third trimester pregnancy, that's hard to hide for most women. You're out there. It's very public, and, you know, even strangers wanting to touch your pregnant belly, right? Which is so inappropriate. Yeah. And I guess, you know, like you said, the coffee shop, you know, they mean well, right? They want to know how you're doing. They want to know how the baby's doing. But I could see why that would be such a painful trigger.
Yep. Yeah. And you know, we talked about earlier, Hoboken being such an awesome place for families starting off, but it could also be very triggering, right, for an individual that's grieving an infant loss. Because
and there's strollers everywhere.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Wow.
Or babies crying in the building that you live in, or, you know, so there's a lot of layers to it. So you know, not that this is advice, the support that I try to give new moms who are just the strength always, I can't you know, the strength and resilience that I've seen in women. But how I will try to support them in such a tragic situation is to say, you need to listen to what you need right now. You're the only one that knows that. So if you don't want to go to that coffee shop yet, or maybe you don't want to go back for months, that's okay.
You go to a new coffee shop.
Exactly. That's okay. Exactly. Or maybe you need to slowly allow those around you, close to you, back, you know, into your day to day. And that's also okay. There's no right way of healing. It's just giving yourself the time and support to heal.
Yeah. And I guess that would be very individualized, right, for each woman. And she's really the only one who can know what is best for her. As a mom of a toddler, I know how frustrating it can be when the sun is shining in my child's eyes. We're driving down the road and there's nothing I can do to protect him. I'm just praying that I'm going to be driving by some tree coverage, so to help, you know, shield that sun from his eyes. And that's why I was so excited to find this product from Baby Trend called Cover Me 4-in-1 Convertible Car Seat. This car seat is amazing. It comes with a innovative and patent-pending integrative canopy that offers height adjustability, ratcheting coverage, and side sun protection to literally create an umbrella and shield that sun from my son's eyes, which is amazing. It's also so cool that this car seat can literally be used from newborn all the way through 100 pounds, which is phenomenal. It just makes the life easier for parents and child. To check it out, go to babytrend.com/OSSA, OSSA, and use the code COVERME20 for 20% off. So how does a woman get even clear? I mean, in the fog of grief, how do you even know what you need?
I do think that, reaching out for some type of support can be beneficial. And I understand I'm biased because I'm a therapist, right? But you need an objective, individual or space that you can, once you're at the place that you're able to start to really feel the feelings, it might take weeks. And again, we talk about the physical healing, but to just help navigate number one, what this will mean for the future, right? Number two, what you need today. And then number three, how are you going to, manage some of the challenges we just talked about? And that could be an individual therapist. It could be a support group. A lot of individuals don't realize there's also a professional called a bereavement doula, and that's their specialty, is to help women navigate through. I don't even like to say navigate, to support and help women through the process of infant loss. And it could be they just sit with them. It could be that they're helping with the day-to-day needs. It could be that they help go through the nursery. So it's just another form of support. And then there's, support groups. Not every woman feels comfortable with that, but they also can be. I've had women that I work with who've met people through social media groups, and it will be someone that's a total stranger, but that they feel that can relate to them because they've gone through a similar loss. And that's been tremendous for their healing journey.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's like no one can really understand that pain unless you've gone through it. Right.
Exactly.
So
yep.
That's nice to have that sisterhood. And I think that's what's really beautiful as women, that we can learn that if we're able to kind of open up and share and connect with other women and be vulnerable, how it can really help with healing. We don't have to just keep it all within inside ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to understand I keep saying healing and managing through, but this is for grief in general, not just pregnancy and infant loss, right? Until you experience, you may not relate to it this way, right? But there's those old theories of stages of grief, which, yes, we all will feel different emotions when we grieve. But the stages of grief gives us this belief that we get to a point and we're almost like, I'm using air quotes, like over it, right?
Right.
Like, oh, now we're healed. And with grief, that's never the case. It just changes its form and its presence in our life. So it becomes a part of who we are. We don't feel that acute grief, like the shock and the processing that you and I were talking about earlier, right? But we still always have grief. It just might change its form.
Right. It doesn't go away. That loss doesn't ever go away.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So I think that's also really important to recognize, especially like for women that are very type A and driven and just like on to the next thing, right? And this is very different, where you literally have to create space and time for yourself to sit and feel that pain, which sucks. And, it's like very hard to go through that, but it's the only way to allow, I think, the grief to move through our body. And like you said, kind of go through those stages without getting stuck.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about, PTSD and how it's related to pregnancy and infant loss? I'm thinking especially like if it's a shock, right? Where it's unexpected, how that could be so intense.
So it's PTSD, there's always a range, right? But with the loss, there is often some type of PTSD symptoms that we'll exhibit. So, for instance, it's reliving finding out about the loss, right? And that can happen if there's future pregnancies. It gets activated even more, right? Because then you're going to the doctor again, and you're going, maybe even the same OB, or, you maybe are going for your 12-week ultrasound, and that's, when you were given the news prior. So you're constantly reliving that trauma. But women in general, right, as we go through something traumatic or a loss, again, our minds are trying to comprehend it. So it will be, remembering, when maybe we found out when our body started to change, right? Also associated to how it was prior to the loss. I've had a lot of women who maybe they experienced a lot of morning sickness, or all day sickness. I hate that we still even use morning sickness, because I don't know many women that just get morning sickness.
Right.
Right. But, and they will often, if they have a future pregnancy or just in general in life, start to feel nauseous. Maybe they get car sick. It'll bring back that memory. They say, like, I feel it in my body.
Wow.
I feel like it in the pit of my stomach. Like, I'm reliving what that felt like, what led to that, what those steps were leading to it. You see it even more now because COVID has complicated so many pieces of our lives, right?
Right.
Last year. And so, but so many women have been alone at doctor visits when they have found out that maybe there was some type of loss or complication.
Right. Their partner wasn't allowed inside the doctor's office.
Exactly. Or for those that then pursue a DNC after a loss, they've had to go through that alone.
Yeah.
In prior times, their partners would be able to be there. And that in itself, it's a medical procedure, going through that medical procedure alone and grieving, right? The trauma that's attached to that and reliving. And again, your mind trying to process that.
And once again, there's definitely a physical healing that has to occur as well.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah, exactly. So that piece, when we were saying about the grief and the integration and just changes form, the trauma piece, though, will shift. That will decrease, sometimes just with time, sometimes with, all the support services I was saying earlier. But it will decrease. It's just, again, it's just constantly like our minds trying to process.
Yeah. So I feel like for any women listening who going through this grief, I think it makes sense, like you had mentioned, to reach out for some sort of professional support, to work with somebody who specializes in this area. Is there a way to find other therapists that work with this type of support?
Yeah. So Psychology Today is like the directory for all therapists. It's an awesome resource. It's really just grown tremendously. It's internationally too. And they have a filter there that you would be able to filter out those that specialize in pregnancy loss. So that's number one. Number two, there's organizations now that offer services or also specialize and offer often affordable or free services that help women navigate various, pregnancy loss, infant loss, and other pregnancy-related challenges. That's Resolve is one of them. They're a tremendous agency. PSI, which is Postpartum Support International. And now they have support groups. They have listings of all professionals on there that specialize in these areas. And now everything's virtual too, which is wonderful. So it's, the offering with the support groups, there's literally one every single day, all different times of the day too, which has been great. And then locally, closer to us in Hoboken, in Montclair, there is a fantastic organization called Pockets of Light. And they offer all different types of services. One of their largest is they have a support group, and they've been around for a while. So I always say, you'd want to tap into those larger organizations, because then you have someone who really specializes. And then you have a variety of resources too, so that it's, like we were saying earlier, what would be the best fit for where they are, on their healing journey.
Right. And perhaps some of the women, I'm assuming they start working off one-on-one private sessions, and then are maybe feeling more prepared to join a group and to be able to share and connect in a larger setting.
It could go that way, or it could be vice versa. Sometimes more, some individuals feel more comfortable being in a group and not individual, for whatever reasons, like maybe it's just the dynamics, or maybe it's that they want to hear, I'm not the only one.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very important. I see that with a lot of stuff. When we're going through a hard time, it's so easy for us to think that this is just unique to us. But then when you start to talk to others who have experienced something very similar, it is kind of reassuring, like, oh, I'm not just going through this alone.
Absolutely. And also, like we were talking earlier, society is definitely catching up, right? Meaning that they're understanding that this is, this type of grief needs to be spoken about, and that the resources need to be there, but we're still not there completely. So that is also a major piece. And with that too, those around us, right? Like we were talking earlier, like they might not always understand. So being surrounded in a group, for instance, a support group of others that are going through a similar experience or have, and can say, like, you can be angry, you can have irrational thoughts of whatever, you can be sad, you can want to isolate, because I feel the same way too, is tremendous, since they're often going up against the challenges of, again, society not always understanding, or others around them not always understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to reiterate, I'm really hoping that having more of these types of conversations will lift some of the shame. I feel like that's still very much connected to especially to miscarriage. And, as women, if we can just share more and be maybe more open with our emotions, we can really help with, it's like a stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And also, then, those that might not go through it, right, but understanding how to speak around the loss. I mean, I'll often say to individuals, again, grief in general, you will really learn about how uncomfortable others around you are with loss.
Right. It's uncomfortable for all of us.
Exactly.
That's so
And people
true.
say, really, really unhelpful things sometimes because of it, and it's, you hope the more we speak about it, even if somebody doesn't experience a similar loss, that their response to others will shift though, and that there will be more of an understanding.
Yeah. As women, how can we best support like a girlfriend, sister who's going through this? Can we be empathetic and supportive to her as a non-professional?
So I think, one, recognizing our own feelings about loss. If we are uncomfortable, right, you want to acknowledge that for yourself, and then make sure that that is not dictating how you are responding, right? Meaning telling them, well, everything happens for a reason, right? Like, well, actually, we don't know what happened here, right? That's not helpful at all. Or
Right.
for individuals, sometimes even if they have, had others in their lives that have had these experiences, they'll want to share their experiences with them. And that sometimes isn't helpful either. It's us being patient and allowing our friend, if it's our friend that's suffering the loss, to have the space to tell us what they need.
Yeah.
Right. And if she wants to speak about it, great. If she doesn't, then we also want to not, patiently, we want to, be patient, right? And not pressure her as if like we have to be there to try to fix it. I think also as friends, remembering what I was saying earlier, that grief doesn't end, that it continues, it just changes form. So, a lot of women have shared with me if they've gone on to have future pregnancies, their friends will then forget almost the loss prior.
Right.
And that loss is still there.
Well, Mollie, do you have any last thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
I think we covered a lot of it. I think the biggest piece is, and this has been the theme, right, is that this is such a frequent, heartbreaking, tragic situation that so many women are facing and have been facing for a very long time, right? That I think it is so important that we do have more honest conversations. And I think it's just tremendous that, you and I are sitting here having this conversation, because I think it's just so imperative that we understand the layers of the grief, and so that we can support each other.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Beautiful. Well said. Well, once again, Mollie, thank you so much for coming on this show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation today with Mollie Busino. It was a tough one to have, but I think a very important conversation to have. As women, we can speak out more about getting support and when we're grieving this unimaginable loss. And I'd love to hear your feedback, and hopefully, this topic was beneficial for everyone listening. And on another note, I'd like to mention my online program, Brayton Birth Method, has gone live. The holistic preconception portion is available for women that are 3 to 6 months prior to actively trying to get pregnant and want to consciously prepare mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually for their conception of their child. You can find more information at my website, drlaurabrayton.com, under Brayton Birth Method.